Welcome in, everybody, to the CFB Nation All-America podcast. I'm Bill Trocchi, senior editor at sportingnews.com, alongside Bill Bender, our national college football writer at sportingnews.com, and the president of the Football Writers Association of America. We're coming to you live on our CFB Nation YouTube channel again. If you want to subscribe, just go over to youtube.com, search CFB Nation, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Those of you listening on the podcast feed, give us a like, give us a review, tell your friends. We know what we're talking about here. You'll see when we go over the picks on Thursday how well we did last week. We can make some people some money. Who knows? But anyway, week 7 is in the books. And Bill, did anything happen over the weekend we need to talk about?
Anything on Sunday? This was very similar to last week where it was kind of quiet early. I mean, I know we'll talk a little bit about Alabama, Mizzou. And then the afternoon, when you're tracking all these games, and we were kind of all in the office, Northwestern's beating Penn State. Wait, Northwestern's still beating Penn State? Wait, Drew Aller's out? Wait. And then, just downhill from there. And then you got into the evening games where the best tweet I've seen in the last 48 hours was the Auburn mascot doing this. And it said, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. It was amazing. So, college football never disappoints in that regard. And I know we got a lot to talk about today.
For those of you not watching, you were making the timeout sign. And
I was making a timeout sign. So Kirby absolutely was calling timeout. And Kirby can lie through it all he wants, man. But there was –
that was crazy.
I've told you over the years, Bill, we have that friend group that are kind of NFL conspiracy theorists, and I threw that right back at them. I said, well, between that and the fumble, can't tell them. No, but it was definitely a fun weekend.
It was. So, yes, we're going to talk about James Franklin and Penn State. We're going to talk about Indiana's big win. We're going to talk about the SEC race and what's happening at the top of that conference right now. But before we do, let's get into a little Trocchi trivia. Are you ready, Mr. Bender?
I am.
Perhaps you've heard James Franklin was 4-21 at Penn State against top 10 opponents. What were the 4 wins? Everybody knows the stat. Does everybody know the 4 wins?
How many were Big Ten? So I just can mentally.
I'm not telling you that. You
I
just
know
gotta
one.
get the 4 wins against top 10 opponents. You got to do it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
So we'll revisit that at the end of the show, see if Bill can come up with that one as we go, because that stat has been recited ad nauseum since Franklin was let go, of course. So let's get into that. James Franklin, the Penn State, lost to Northwestern 22-21 on Saturday. It gave them 2 straight losses as a 20-point favorite, which is believed to have never happened before. Those records on point spreads only go, I think somewhere I saw it goes back to 1978. So, but I believe it. 2 straight losses as a 20-point favorite. Very rare. Could definitely be the first time that's ever happened. Their first loss, UCLA, they had a 5-star QB. They were coming off the emotional double overtime loss against Oregon. They had the 3,000-mile flight to UCLA. They almost came back and won that game. Maybe you give them a pass a little bit, although you declared their season was over with Mike DeCourcy on our podcast, which was very funny and prescient. You predicted that one. And then they come home against Northwestern. Northwestern 57th in the 24/7 talent composite. I checked this morning. So you got to win that game, Bill. And they didn't. And the Penn State pulled the plug after 12 seasons on the James Franklin era on Sunday. So let's quickly talk about your reaction. You wrote a column for sportingnews.com on Sunday about Penn State needing to have an honest evaluation about their football program.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it starts. They're not. So you run down Pat Kraft's statement, and he said we're a national powerhouse, and I'm thinking, well, you're not. Like I'm. People think I'm a critic. Like what? How can you call nobody that has won and hasn't won a national title since 1986 is a national powerhouse? Like
they were in the Final Four last year.
That's one. Like,
well, it wasn't ancient history though.
Yeah, but there's the but there. Look who they beat to get there. But they got there. I'll give you that. There's two sides to this. One, they're not a national powerhouse. They're not a Big Ten powerhouse. They've won 4 Big Ten championships since 1994. Like, they're not Ohio State, certainly, which I've had this conversation in the Sporting News office for about 10 years, trying to tell people they're not that. They're close to Michigan. They're about the same program wise. They're,
Michigan is not a national power.
Not every year. Certainly not. Like, the 4-year stretch aside with Harbaugh that everybody got mad about a sign stealer, look at everything before that. Like, they've spent about 10 to 15 years not being a national power. So, yeah, I don't think they're any of those things. I do think they're a perennial playoff contender. That's how I would label their program. And James Franklin, had we been in a 12-team format over the last 15 years, they would have been in the playoff a lot. I talked to Mike DeCourcy over the phone Sunday. He obviously covered Penn State. He knows that program. And I'm not speaking for him, but we kind of ran through it. It is very similar. James Franklin's probably very similar to Matt Painter at Purdue. And Matt Painter has a lot of early exits in the NCAA tournament, and they wanted to run him out. And and what is he got them to a national championship game. The Big Ten hasn't won a national championship in basketball since 2000. They don't run off Izzo and Painter and, Dusty May's not getting run out of Michigan if they lose in the first round this year. So I think they made an emotional decision, and they did it because they probably have somebody, whether or not it's back channeled, they probably have the guy they want in their sights. And there's a couple guys that make sense.
So Notre Dame went 4.
Wait. Do you think Penn State's a national power? What is your view? I gave you mine. What do you, if I said, what is Penn State to Bill Trocchi, what would you say?
I would say if you put yourself in position enough times, you're going to break through. And everything was lined up for them to break through this year. So they clearly underperformed, and they missed a huge opportunity. I mean, they followed the blueprint that Michigan had, that Ohio State had, with the guys coming back. They were on the verge. Everything was lined up, and then they just totally underperformed. So, I was just about to bring up when Brian Kelly went 4-8 at Notre Dame, they didn't fire him, right? And then he kind of got everything back together, and then they made the college football playoff a few times. They had some, really good success, and then Kelly left for LSU. So that was a case where you suffered through a really, really ugly season and stuck with the coach, and he actually turned it around. Penn State has decided not to do that, but the situations are different because the expectations were so high, and it was just so lined up, like I said. And so it is weird when you take a step back and you look at his resume and you look at everything, what the program was when he got there and what the program is kind of now, preseason top 2, Final Four last year, all that kind of stuff. You're like, all right, we got the right guy in place, and they just, so it's a weird thing to say it was justified, but I think all parties felt like it was time to move on. I think the fans.
Well, we talked about that frustration when I was there a couple of weeks ago, but even I couldn't, there's no way, and I was there, obviously. I walked out of that locker room, saw the frustration from Harbaugh, Franklin, Drew Aller, and some others, and I didn't leave that Penn State game thinking 2 weeks later James Franklin's getting fired because they're going to get embarrassed twice in a row. Nobody thought that. So it's definitely. If
they went 11-1, won one playoff game, lost in the quarterfinals or something like that, like, you got to keep them, right? That's where, if you pull the plug on that type of thing, where you went to the Final Four one year, you went to the quarterfinals the next year, which huge disappointment because you didn't win the national championship. It was lined up for you, but you made the playoff. You did all this. But this thing, that changes the equation.
I mean, Yeah, but I still think it was too much of it. It's a risky decision, and two, and it's there's no question it's a little bit of an emotional decision based on a couple, maybe it can't just be about UCLA Northwestern. We talk about the NFL, and we talk about the college football turning into the NFL. The Packers didn't fire Matt LaFleur after losing to the Browns. The Steelers, if they lose to the Bengals Thursday, and Joe Flacco, they're not firing Mike Tomlin the next day. Quality organizations don't make decisions like that. On the other hand, I bet you when Georgia parted ways with Mark Richt, I bet you I wrote the same column that I did Sunday. that it's risky. How can you do that? This guy wins 10 games.
Are you a power?
Are you really a national powerhouse? Which at the time, you could argue Georgia hadn't won a national title since 1980. And they took a risk. They bring in Kirby Smart. The rest is history. That can't happen. Other side of this coin, and I did the Lloyd Carr comparison last week, so I won't rehash that. But, I mean, go back to Frank Solich. Go back, and this is kind of ironic. Nebraska fires Frank Solich. He went to a national championship game, loses to Miami. They haven't been the same since. So which one's it going to be for Penn State?
Right.
And of course, the two guys that we're zeroing in on, what if they both say no? What if? So let's name those two guys, Curt Cignetti and Matt Rule. Curt Cignetti's 63 years old. He's basically, revered in Indiana the rest of his tenure, no matter how it goes. Look where they're at compared to where they've been. They're probably going to go to the playoff for the second straight year. They're going to probably go to the Big Ten championship game. He's taking a risk by leaving, especially at his age. Matt Rule's the obvious choice to me. Program building from Penn State would, he just looks like a Penn State coach. Sounds like a Penn State coach. Played there, has a ton of pride, knows the history.
Tight with
the AD, has those relationships. I would bet he's the guy today. And again, then you saw people comparing Matt Rule's record. I saw that exchange going on last night on social media about Matt Rule's record against ranked teams, but a large portion of that record was when he was at Baylor and Temple. So are we penalizing Matt Rule for losing to ranked teams at Temple? I mean,
I don't think it's great at Nebraska either.
It's not, but look, again, Nebraska has been pressing reset since Frank Solich left. So here we go. It's like one nasty circle. And I would say that if Nebraska came out in a statement when Matt Rule leaves and their AD says, we're a national powerhouse, no, you're not. We haven't won a national title since 1997, a split one, where I think Michigan was better. But that's my point. These programs and Dan Wetzel, I think on the pod, I didn't listen to the whole pod, but I saw the pull quote. He said, there's only one program right now where winning is probably your birthright, winning 11 games, and it's 10 minutes from my house. That's the only one right now that can say, wake up today and say, we're going to win 11.
He had another great line on that podcast, not to give Wetzel so much credit, but he deserves it. He's great. He said, you no longer coach a program. You coach a team. And every year that team changes. Every year that team resets.
Like the NFL.
So it's not program building. It's not recruiting for 3 years. And who knows? Cignetti might go 4-8 next year at Indiana. He doesn't have his quarterback. He loses a lot of these seniors. And, he's proven it again and again. But, no one's, guaranteed, like you said, 11 wins, except for an Ohio State. So we'll see.
No, and one last thing. So, to that point, what's the difference between these days Mike Norvell and Mike McDaniel? 2 years ago, we all loved Mike McDaniel in the NFL. Oh, his offense is amazing. They're so fast. He's witty in his press conferences and funny. And now, how's that go? How's that going now? They're 1-5, and I think they're either a short favorite or a short underdog against Cleveland on Sunday. Mike Norvell 2 years ago, baby step away from the playoff. Last year, disaster. This year, Could go either way at 3-3. Don't know where they're headed. And
it's going the wrong way right now.
Right. And I think everybody asked for NIL and NFL. You have it. And you're hearing Sark and Rule and other coaches weigh in on Franklin, because I think it's probably a wake-up call to some of them. Like, man, if they can do that to him, they can do that to me at any time. And I think that's the larger reverberation about this firing across the college football landscape.
Yeah. Mike Rosenberg read a good thing for Sports Illustrated. We'll talk about it some other time, but just like the contracts and how if the college game is becoming so much like the NFL, the coaching contracts need to be like NFL, where you can't poach coaches and you don't get 10-year guaranteed extensions. They don't do that in the NFL. So like when Dan Campbell came out of nowhere and is doing great, the Las Vegas Raiders can't poach him. They just don't. That doesn't happen. And college would be better off, I think, if it put an end to that situation and these crazy buyouts and things like that. We'll talk about that some other day. One thing I did want to touch on that hasn't been discussed as much in terms of James Franklin. What's next? He goes, I'll give you a multiple choice test. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
A, in 2026, James Franklin will be A, working for ESPN, B, an assistant in the NFL, C, head coach in the SEC, D, head coach in the ACC.
I think he fits North Carolina. I'm not trying to grab a headline, but if North Carolina were to move on from Belichick, a guy like Franklin would be the home run cleanup hire. Because you wouldn't pay as much attention to the mess. You would pay attention to, this guy won a lot of games. Probably could
rah. He's got a lot of rah to him.
Perfect program builder. Did it at Vandy. Kind of built on what Bill O'Brien did at Penn State. I think he would fit there. And SEC also a possibility because they're going to have some openings. And so one of those two would be my answer. I don't think he'll go to the studio. I don't think he'll be an NFL assistant coach. He could opt to, hey, I got $49 million or whatever it ends up being. I just take a year off and reset. Some coaches do that. And then, but my guess would be ACC or SEC.
There's so many openings this year. He'd be crazy to take the year off.
Right.
I don't think he needs a reset. What about UCLA? Like going to LA, he, like I said, he talks a big game and all that stuff. They've been in need for a long time of some attention and a program builder like him. Now it's still in the Big Ten. He's got his failures in the Big Ten. If you're going to pay him what he's going to want, you're probably going to want a championship. And, the argument against is, well, he didn't win one at Penn State and he had everything at his feet. So are we going to really hire him inside the Big Ten? But I don't know. UCLA seems to be a place I would think about.
Yeah, as long as he maintains Jerry Neuheisel, who might be the hottest name in coaching right now, because it's proof that marriage between coordinator and five-star quarterback matters. And right now it's working with Nico. So possibility. I think, like I said, North Carolina, if Billy Napier in Florida part ways, which I still think that's 60-40 either way.
Florida State and Auburn are on the verge. All three of those might come open.
They're all kind of weird right now. So, those are the three schools I would watch too, because Auburn's a big job. Franklin, I think he'd crush it down there. What was the other one you said? Not Florida.
Florida State and Auburn.
Florida State. That's another one where he would probably play off well. Though some might see him and just see Mike Norvell all over again. It's an interesting. He'll have options though, and he'll coach somewhere. You don't have that good of a coaching record and not coach somewhere.
Right, and he's not known as a defensive guy or an offensive guy. He's just kind of a head coach. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he'd be like a defensive coordinator for the Bears or something like that. Like, I don't really see him going to the NFL as a specialist or something. He's a head coach. That's it. And, he's gone through a lot of coordinators in his time at Penn State. So anyway, well, let's move on to Kirk Cignetti's current team, Indiana, they beat Oregon 30-20, snapped the Ducks' 18-game home winning streak. And, Bill, they just beat them. They outrushed them. They outpassed them. They had more time of possession, fewer turnovers, fewer penalty yards, gave up a pick six, and still won by double digits. I mean, extremely impressive. Like I told you, I think I missed their blowout of Illinois, so I was eager to see them. Fernando Mendoza definitely lived up to all the NFL talk that I had read before that game. He's making passes from the near hash to the far sideline, 20 yards down the field on a rope. So he was impressive. Their lines were better than I thought. They were more athletic. They're much better than the team that Notre Dame blew out in the college football playoff last year.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon 3 of 14 on third down, 81 yards rushing at home, just going on the road. And we talked about this Big Ten travel trend, that the two schools that have kind of been above that are Ohio State and Indiana. Indiana went out and beat UCLA down. Now they go down, top 10 win against Oregon, and there was no hesitation, none, for me to put them at number 3 in the pool. Like none. Like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. So, I mean, I'm a believer. I think that really opens up the door for them, if you look at their remaining schedule, to probably be in the Big Ten championship game, get another swing at Ohio State. Kurt Signetti, the aura, as the kids like to say, is growing by the week. From the sideline interviews to the post-game interviews to his quips and quotes, I've said I think the Bob Knight comparison is apt, because what he's doing, and he's not as like boorish as Bob Knight was, obviously, but he wins and he drives the haters crazy. And that's exactly what Bob Knight did in Bloomington for, I grew up watching those games against, Ohio State and Purdue and Michigan, and just watching Bob Knight on the sideline. People either loved his way or hated his way. And Signetti has achieved that in a short time in Indiana. It's nothing short of remarkable.
You and I spent some time with him at the Eddie Robinson thing, and the confidence you see on TV is not a false. It's real. It's all real. It's not a show. When he is doing his press conferences and talking about everything they've accomplished and things like that, he does it in casual conversation as well. So, all right. Well, yeah. So let's move on real quick before we get out of here. I want to talk about the SEC. There were some big games, big results. Georgia, of course, holy mackerel. They had the craziest final 2 minutes of the Georgia-Auburn second quarter. Final 2 minutes before halftime took 33 real minutes, I believe, with replay. No injuries either. No injury timeout. It took 33 real minutes to play 2 minutes of football. Because of all of the replays, the confusion, the timeouts, and excuse me, eventually Georgia, which had 20 yards at that point, at the 2 minute warning in the second quarter, 20 total yards. They're losing 10-0, about to go down 17-0. They get a replay review in their favor at the goal line on a fumble by Jackson Arnold that I would say most people think he did score. But the replay officials stuck with the call on the field that it was a fumble. And I don't think I've ever seen one call change a game as much as it changed that game. Auburn was dominating. They were about to go up 17-0. And like I said, Georgia had 3 possessions, 20 yards, not even remotely close to scoring. Eventually got some points right before the half, and then flipped the script in the second half, pulled it out 20-10. Gunnar Stockton did what he had to do. I don't know what to make of this Georgia team. They just seem like a solid level below what you would expect, the standard that Kirby has set the last couple of years.
Yeah, Raymond Horton. Yeah, I did have a birthday Sunday, so I got lost with that comment. But yeah, happy birthday to you too. There's a lot of people surprisingly born on October 12th, by the way.
There you go.
Georgia got lucky, like you said, and Georgia got the benefit of a call. Georgia got the benefit of the timeout. But in the second half, Gunnar Stockton made some clutch throws in that game and some clutch plays, and he's got a little bit of Stetson Bennett in him. There's no doubt. that the way that I think my view of Georgia is this, that they are not by any stretch those untouchable 21-22 teams where I watched them and thought, well, somebody might get a first down on them. They might kick a field goal. They're not that, and they're actually more fun to watch as a result because you see Kirby still can coach, and he to get out of that environment after the start that they had, the running game stop and start, their defense isn't that good, which leads to this week, and we'll talk about it in our later show this week. That line against Ole Miss looks a little funny, thinking they're a touchdown favorite against a very good Ole Miss team. So, but as long as you keep winning and grinding, they'll have a chance.
So they were a 3-point favorite against Auburn and a 7-point favorite against Ole Miss. That
home and road, I guess. I guess Jordan Hare accounts for 4 points and a funky call at the goal line and all of these things that lead you to ask those questions. But at the end of the day, Kirby got away with it, and they got the win, and they made the plays in crunch time in the fourth quarter. So, and as Kirby will always say, some of these road environments in the SEC are ridiculous. You can see that on TV. It's a tough place to play.
Oh yeah. So Auburn AD Jay Cohen commented on. He was asked by Alabama.com about the status of Hugh Freeze, who is now 0-3 in the SEC this year. Did you see his quote?
I did not.
Quote, I don't know if I'm going to walk outside and my car is going to start or not. I think it is. I have an expectation it will, but if my car doesn't start enough, then I'll have to evaluate that and make decisions about my car. But that's not my expectation at this point about our football program. Ringing endorsement?
No.
I don't know what that meant.
I've backed my car into the basketball hoop in the driveway. I did that once, and then so that was not a good day. But I anticipate the car will start most days. Hopefully, if it doesn't, Kimberly had that happen a couple months ago. She got in the garage, car doesn't start. Made for a hell of an evening. We had to call AAA and all that, but.
I guess he's saying he still thinks that the football program is running, but if it doesn't stop, if it stops running, he's going to make a change. Is that
right? They're going to move on from him soon, I think. And this weekend is even more telling than last weekend. They are favored against Missouri. The Tigers are good, and I know we might talk briefly here about Alabama in a second.
Yeah, that's my next game. Go ahead.
They're good.
Alabama 27, Missouri 24. Go ahead.
So if Auburn's headspace isn't there this weekend, Missouri could go into Jordan Hare and blow them out. Then we'll have the car might not start the next day. Alabama, Missouri was probably the game I watched the closest live. Both of those teams are good. Ty Simpson's a good quarterback. He controls the game well. They made some good decisions with the football. They're creative with Caden Proctor at the goal line. They made some mistakes. You'll have to watch Jam Miller's status going into the Tennessee game. But I came away with that probably more impressed with Mizzou. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say real quick, Caden Proctor had more yards from scrimmage than Ryan Williams.
Yeah, they're going to find other.
What's happening with Ryan Williams?
There are other
zero yards, 0 catches.
Their other receivers made plays, though. So I'm sure the coverage was ruled his way. I'm waiting for the Caden Proctor reverse now. Now that we've seen him in the Wildcat and on a wide receiver screen, let's get him on a reverse jet
or
sweep.
A halfback pass.
Yeah, they'll find something. But this Missouri defense is pretty good, and Prabula is good. Ahmad Hardy is good. One of the best running backs in the country. They're not they're just a tough team under Eli, which, before I was doing the prep this morning, Drinkwitz is another name to watch in that Penn State search. If Rule stays put, if Signetti stays put, Eli's one that he'd be interesting there. Just look at his track record at Missouri. He's very good. Yeah. He's a very good coach. And he also...
You finally have to go on the road after 6 straight home games.
If Indiana and Missouri ever played in a playoff game, every reporter would be out of their mind so happy just to go to that press conference and listen to those two talk. That would be the moment where they would both be quiet. But Yeah, I'm really impressed with that Missouri football program, even in a loss. But we'll see if they can do it against.
Yeah, I was going to
Auburn.
say 3-point spread. Alabama won by 3. Like, did that game make you feel better about either team? Better, worse, or the same? I mean,
I think Alabama's pretty good. I think they're not.
You predicted them 8-0 to finish.
Yeah, I don't
the
think they're going to lose if they're going to lose one, it'll be this week, because I think Tennessee can make it interesting if they push it up and down. And they've given Alabama fits 2 of the last 3 years with this offense. So I do think they're going to be in the playoff. I think Kalen DeBoer, I'm happy for him given the amount of criticism he took after week 1, and they're still my pick to win the SEC.
Okay. That led me to my next one. Texas A&M 34, Florida 17. Aggies still unbeaten. It was a 1-score game with 5 minutes to go before the Aggies locked it up. Marcel Reed ran for a touchdown, threw for a touchdown. Neutral field. You like Bama over A&M?
Yeah, Bama. A&M's really good though. Like defense, they're fun to watch. They're kind of a grimy team. They like to run the football around Marcel Reed. They get after you. Cassius Howe is a game wrecker on the defensive side, and they're just tough. And I would kind of want to see a separate first round. I definitely want to see a first round playoff game between A&M and Texas Tech. And I think I projected that would be fun.
State championship.
Yeah, played at an oil field. Because that's where these guys are getting all this NIL money. That would be a fun matchup. I do like A&M. I think their schedule is set up because they don't play Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, or Ole Miss. It's kind of like don't screw it up. And I think they're going to, at minimum, be either not. I think Texas A&M will probably be 10-1 when they play the Longhorns. So what a game that will be.
This stat won't shock you. 3rd down conversion defense nationally, Texas A&M, number 1, Ohio State, number 2.
Very good. Yeah, and that doesn't shock me at all. Those are 2 of the best 3rd down defenses in the country. And, A&M will keep it rolling this week. Trap game for them this week at Arkansas, because the Razorbacks are a little bit more competitive with Bobby Petrino. That series has a lot to it. A&M has definitely dominated the series, but there have been a lot of close games.
Yeah, I looked it up. There's been Texas A&M is 12-1.
Mm-hmm.
7 of their 12 wins were 1 score.
Oh, the game's always wild too. Yeah. It has missed field goals and trick plays. That's that old Southwest Conference rivalry. It'll be a fun game.
Yep. So, all right. Well, that does it, except for our Trocchi trivia question. Let's get back and see if you can do it. So James Franklin was 4-21 at Penn State against top 10 opponents. He will forever be 4-21 at Penn State against top 10 opponents. What were the 4 wins, Bill?
Boise State last year.
You are correct.
I can't decide if SMU was or not. Are we going off playoff seeding or ranking with them? I'm going to say not SMU.
AP top 10.
I don't think SMU was in the top 10. They had lost the week before. Ohio State in 16.
That's 2.
Wisconsin in 16.
That's 3.
The 4th one. Is the 4th one Big Ten team?
No.
It's not. So a bowl game. They won.
Anyone in the comments want to help them out here?
It's the bowl game. It's not. They didn't beat USC. Memphis? No, give me one more. Give me one more, because they've been to a lot. They've been to a lot of BCS, or they were a lot of New Year's Day 6 games. Utah,
the 2022 Rose Bowl.
There you go.
You got it.
Got to it. It took a minute, but I
ran that by Matt Fortuny yesterday. He did the same thing. He took a little while to get the 4. Everyone knows the stat, but people didn't know.
I knew the 2 right away in 16 because I was at both of those games.
He actually forgot Boise. He couldn't.
And then Boise, you've got to figure it was close, but yeah. So hey, man, I got to it. That was good.
There you go. So very good. All right, great show. We'll be back Thursday morning at 9:30 to preview Week 8. Thank you to everyone for listening to the CFB Nation All-America podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you to Irish Breakdown, your source for Notre Dame football information. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you on Thursday.